Should I be using AI is the wrong question. The right question is how should I use it? Since there's so many different ways that we can be using AI in our business, I've started developing a framework to help determine how we should be using it based on the context in which we're operating. We'll start with complexity. AI is good at certain things, but if you give it too much complexity all at once, it starts to have a hard time. We typically call this hallucinations. One axis of this framework is the task complexity axis. We need to evaluate, is it a simple task or is it a complex task that we're asking AI to do? We're going to combine this with risk. We're going to ask ourselves, is this a low-risk activity? Is this something that if it went completely wrong, it would have minimal impacts on the business? Or is this fairly high risk? If something goes wrong, this is definitely going to impact us. We combine those two axes, we get what I call a risk and complexity framework, where we end up with 4 different quadrants that help us determine how we approach using AI in our business. Let's start with the first one. In the low risk, low complexity quadrant, this is where tasks are fairly simple and there's not a lot to the decision-making process. Examples of this are content categorization, data entry, validation, drafting routine documents. Using AI in this context means that we're going to focus on efficiency. We're going to just get things in place. We're going to iterate very quickly and try and get the maximum amount of efficiency out of that process as possible. We're going to focus on simple rules. We're just going to keep an eye on the results. Should be pretty straightforward. The second category is still low risk. We're starting to deal with a little bit more complexity. This might involve different team members, categorizing customer information, maybe brainstorming ideas for marketing campaigns. In this category, we're going to experiment with AI. We're going to use it to get some ideas, leverage insights, but we're going to want to start to pair that with a human to make sure that we're on the track. And we're going to repeat this process as we continue to experiment with our AI systems. In the next quadrant, we start to integrate a little bit of risk. So this is dealing with customers, handling communications with vendors. Maybe we're starting to deal with important information like financial data. The way we approach AI in this sector is we're going to start off with very specific rules about what the AI can and cannot do. We're going to make sure that there's a human involved in the process almost all the time. And we're going to focus on validating the quality of the outputs before we use any of this data in our organization. The last sector of the quadrant is the high risk and high complexity quadrant. This has to deal with critical knowledge in the organization, maybe mission critical decisions or high risk scenarios with our customers. Approaching this scenario with AI, we're going to make sure that we're trying to break our AI tasks into as small components as possible. We're going to use AI for a little bit of assistance in the process, but we're going to make sure that we always have a human involved, checking every step of the way to make sure that there aren't any critical mistakes. I should point out that if you're thinking of replacing people in your organization, I would consider this to be high risk, high complexity. Instead, we should focus on reducing wasted time within the organization to make our staff much more efficient. That means reducing the redundant, low-risk tasks so our staff can get more done in less time. This is my framework so far. If you have any thoughts or feedback, feel free to leave a comment below.